Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Greg Tech New Horizons. This is Zypher, and we're going to dive deep into the EV age today. I'm just starting off right now by reaping some of the benefits from this large distillation tower, what I refer to as the monster. And I was grabbing some methane. I'll head down and show you why. So I was doing some exploring of our new EV tab in the quest book and saw this nuclear symbol and was immediately drawn in, as I'm currently starting to run low on fuel with every type of operation that I am running right now. Everything runs off of fuel. So I started crafting some things up, learning a little bit about nuclear power, and these look like they could be a little tough. Advanced machine casing, basic machine casing, but it's really easy materials. So everything was going along well until I needed to make this platinum cable, and I have a decent amount of platinum on the side, so made the cable and went to coat it and realized you cannot use just normal rubber once you reach this level of metal. So I'm currently working the quest line for silicone rubber so I can make this and continue further down the nuclear branch. So as you can see here, we're slowly starting to get dimethyl dichlorosilane. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, but we're about halfway through the quest line then. In the HV tab towards the bottom, you have silicone rubber. I'm in the middle right now. We'll see what this dust is all about next, but first I'm going to wait to get all 21 of these. Mountains of time later, I finally got all the sheets and was able to make the platinum cable. So, we finally have a nuclear reactor in our possession, and I would indeed say that is appropriate power. Now that we have some of the major components for a nuclear reactor, we'll get into this in a little while being relative. I'm just gathering some limonite to centrifuge down into hydrogen, as I've done some modifications here. So I changed the route of the sulfuric gas. It is now being transported directly into our large chemical reactor. That large chemical reactor is not only just producing diesel, but it's also producing refinery gas now too. So I have two relatively good fuel sources, combustion and gas turbines. Speaking of, I was just curious what the comparison is for EU per burn. 160 for this, 480 for the combustion generator. So I'm gonna fly through some refinery gas, but I have the refinery gas hooked up to pretty much all the machines down on the bottom here. The pipelines are still clearing of fuel, and this also means I'm going to need to upgrade this from a combustion generator to a gas turbine. But we'll do all of that when the time comes. But once that runs out of fuel, I'll convert it over to a gas turbine. They're not too expensive to make, especially when you have over 50 HV circuits. Also, now that these tanks store their fluid even when moved, I needed a way to empty this one water out of here. I realized the plunger does a very good job of that. Uh, and I also wanted to mention, I think it's super cool that it fits in the toolbox, because some things just don't go in the toolbox no matter how hard you try. So yeah, anyways, I need loads of hydrogen to be able to turn all of these different sulfuric fuels into, well, there's nothing in here, uh, into their other states. So I've went out and started mining a crap ton of limonite. But through gathering all this limonite, I've stored an excess amount of oxygen. I've crafted up this medium voltage overflow valve that I'll just put right on the top so it'll avoid any excess oxygen. So if we look here, it's voided all 3.5 million other that was in there, and it'll just keep it at 512. If I need a lot more oxygen later, I can make an HV one, but I figured for now, the medium voltage will do just fine. That in turn is going to allow these fluid canners to empty all the way out, and Oh, that's the other one. And once they empty out, then the hydrogen process will resume. What I'm confused about is I put an odd number of cells into the centrifuge thinking that it will only run the recipe until it has one cell left, and that'll keep that slot occupied, but it's not how it's been working, and I don't quite understand what the hiccup there is, how that one cell is processing and then being transferred and given the conveyor enough time to pull limonite into it. Don't know, but I now have over 2,000 yellow limonite and 1,000 brown limonite, which is going to store a bunch of extra hydrogen for us, which also means I can turn our distillation tower back on now that we don't have a backup of sulfuric gas. I think the next to run into issues is going to be naphtha, but we'll handle this when it comes. Our next order of business is going to be to move this pyrolyse down here into the underground to one of these unoccupied zones. Hello. One of these unoccupied quadrants, and we're going to put the pyrolyse right here and start producing some fermented biomass. We'll probably take the fermented biomass and send it over to a distillation tower somewhere right around here, and that way we can start getting tetranitromethane. The key thing holding me back, it appears, is this ethanone, which I've learned you can combine with sulfuric acid and acetic acid to get 1,000 of them. So that is the whole method behind distilling fermented biomass, although we also get all these other great byproducts. So this is going to be a little bit of a hassle to set up, but I have a super tank for methane already. I have one for ethanol. Water we're just going to void, so it's not going to require too much. And this fertilizer, as a byproduct, will be sent right over here and keep him running. Because I guarantee you, right now, that is the thing holding him back. No fertilizer. The farm has been modified, and I've got a little bit of our process going for fermented biomass. So let me show you what I've been up to. Inside our Forestry multi-farm, I've changed the electron tubes and a new circuit board to do a manual farm with IC2 crops. For now, we're going to use sugarcane until I think of some better alternatives that I'd rather use, but the sugarcane is being sent over top to this barrel, which then compresses the sugarcane into plant balls. The plant balls get macerated down into plant mass, and the plant mass is centrifuged into biochaff, which is sent, if I have the jetpack on, into here, and that is then converted into fermented biomass. That is the reason I did not reload the farm with fertilizer yet, because I have absolute tons of this right now. So I'll activate the farm later when I see it is necessary. Probably our biggest addition to the base technology-wise is this distillation tower for fermented biomass. Right now I'm just filling it up with fluid cells. Eventually this might be automated, but we get all types of wonderful byproducts like I mentioned before, including all of this great acetic acid. So the next part of the process is to mix everything together and get tetranitromethane. This input hatch is going to be receiving the acetic acid once I put a pump on that super tank. So that acetic acid in that hatch will mix with sulfuric acid, which I've had set up for a long time now. Those two together will make ethanone. The ethanone will then be sent underneath into a buffered super tank and into this input hatch on the next large chemical reactor. This ethanone will be combined with nitric acid, which is the next part of our processing in here. For that, we just need ammonia and oxygen, and that'll output into this hatch right here. So once the nitric acid outputs, we'll have it buffered in a super tank right here, and I'm going to put an input hatch directly up top, so that way I can just pipe nitric acid directly into that port. The nitric acid will mix with the ethanone, and then we'll output that tetranitromethane will output right here, and then be sent all the way over here into a buffer and then also into this input hatch. Now in theory, I'm hoping if I just add a pump onto here so it imports the 8000 nitric acid, it'll combine with ethanone and output tetranitromethane into this hatch. I'm hoping it does that and not the water, but let's see what it decides it wants to do with its life. Once that hatch has enough, we should see this activate, and we cross our fingers that it's the tetra. Yes! Wonderful. Now I can take just one of these and lock this hatch. Awesome. So this should be all set up now. I just really need to put a pump on here, which will send acetic acid over. I don't think I'm doing anything else with this acetic acid. However, the ammonia looks like it might have some uses in the future, so I'm going to save the ammonia. But let's slap a pump on this super tank here and see if we can't get some live action. First is this hatch that needs to fill up, so we'll check on this one first. There we go, it is getting some acetic acid, and looks like it's already activated and mixing it, which should, in theory, send it from this hatch into the super tank, and then into, yep, it's going in there. It does go into the super tank and end up in the hatch. Awesome. So now that we have ethanone fully automated, all that remains, pretty much, is to drop some ammonia into this hatch whenever we want some tetranitra. And now I need to run the line from this over to here and buffer it with the super tank. Here soon we'll have our Cetane-Boosted Diesel, and I'll pop back in as soon as I get this line hooked up. It's a little scary sight to see. There's creepers next to my nuclear reactor thing that I'm trying to get set up. I don't know how I feel about this. Well, the tetranitromethane line is complete. However, you might be wondering where this distillation tower has mysteriously disappeared to. I went ahead and moved it because originally this was indeed placed on a chunk border and it was shutting off randomly, and I do not want my fuel distillation tower shutting off whenever it pleases. So I have relocated it, redone all the piping. Even if you tuned into my live stream, you watched me do all of this. But I had a recommendation to start using ender fluid conduits. They're really not that bad to craft up. It just takes a while for the vibrant alloy to be done. But that has been completed, and I wanted to take you guys with me as I have run out of oil sands. Also, bye-bye, Mr. Sacred Oak. You no longer have purpose in my base, and we'll probably leave your remnants for now. As far as the redwood, I have to deal with you later. So, also on my live stream, I took a new HV seismic prospector and did some prospecting. And if we see here, I originally had done a prospect right here and didn't find any oil sands, so I moved up some further into the mountains over here, and we have indeed found an oil sands vein. Now, also on the live stream, I slapped an HV miner on it, and these are our results so far. Tons of oil sands, exactly what I wanted, and all she needs is a boost on her fuel, and she'll continue to mine. Hello. Now I can just load this back up. There we go. We now have some heavy oil being centrifuged, going straight into the distillation tower, which then empties its contents into our original containers and processes. I even have a little backlog of tetranitro started. Hatch is full. So yeah, we're in business. I think my next goal is going to be to initialize this reactor and get its power routed appropriately, and also move the EBFs, because I noticed this EBF is definitely on a boundary and it does shut off occasionally. So I would like to move these and free up some more space here on the perimeter. I think the first step to this whole process is going to be getting power storage down. So what I'm going to do is mix up some Lapatron dust, and then I can take this Lapatron dust and throw it in the autoclave once I have enough with some vibrant alloy, and that will give us these Lapatron crystals. These are EV tier batteries that store 10 million EU. So I think I'm going to build an 8 slot, 9 slot battery buffer and fill it with Lapatron crystals, and that'll be what we store power from our nuclear reactor in. So here's our 9 slot buffer, and soon enough we'll have some Lapatron crystals. If any of you are wondering, what might I be doing with all this gelled toluene? Stay tuned. There might be a hint in the live stream if you go back and watch that. But if you don't, just stay tuned. Next episode, all of this is being put to use. Well, our Lapatron crystals are complete. They are now inside the battery buffer. This is just a temporary idea for the time being. I just got to figure it out exactly how I want these set up. A little side project I thought about and started working on pretty heavily was this methane setup. So I have methane coming off of 2 different distillation towers, our oil cracking and our fermented biomass, which has made this thing cap out pretty quickly. Upon looking at the recipe, you can actually electrolyze 5 of these down to get some carbon, hydrogen, and empty cells. But I've made this setup here. I'll go through and explain it real quick. Essentially, all of the methane gas is being pumped down here into this super tank. This super tank has a conveyor on the bottom that is set to export. If I throw these methane cells in the electrolyzer, I'll try to explain it as quickly as I can while it does the process, but it's going to electrolyze down. It's going to automatically push out the carbon into the drawer. It's going to send the hydrogen cells down into this canner, which then empties them into our super tank down here. And then I have all types of conduits back here. But essentially we have this one with a filter to extract only hydrogen and empty cells. This has a input filter to only insert empty cells. And then there's some underneath it here too. The bottom one is to extract only empty cells, which will then send the empty cells back into here. And so it just continues on a loop, which is going to be extremely beneficial. Eventually, all this hydrogen won't be backed up the way it is now. Or methane, I said hydrogen. But yeah, you get the gist of it. So I now have both limonites and methane to contribute to our hydrogen pile, and our hydrogen is what's being used nonstop to convert all these sulfuric fuels into their respective refined versions. So yeah, that's that. It took me a little while to figure this part out, but now that I have fuel that will continuously be made and hydrogen that won't run out, I can finish focusing on these blast furnace move. I'm pretty sure I'm about to put them right here. I just need to kind of clear out this area a little bit and play with the design and where I want the hatches at, so on and so forth. Well, as I load this up, I figured it was a good time to start recording. I finally moved the EBFs over. I'll go and show that real quick. These bad boys are nicely positioned, all symmetrical, everything's nice. I have a wire run from the bottom of it all the way into this EV battery buffer with 8 Lapatron crystals. And I have the wiring ready for here. I just want to see these charge first. But here comes the scariest part of it all. And we're going to do a backup to start. Now, if everything is good, we'll get no explosions. Output 1920, core temp of 0%. It looks good right now. I'm just not sure if we're actually getting electricity over here. This could be an issue. Oh, here we go. Must have had to fill the buffer. Yeah, that's a pretty good sized buffer to fill. Well, that's good news. We got no explosions and our EV battery buffer's starting to charge. I'm gonna let that get pretty full before I start and activate the blast furnaces, but looks like we're rocking and rolling here with some nuclear powered fuel. Eventually when we move bases like I've been asked to do 100 times, I'll have to move this again, but for now this is gonna propel us a good amount forward. So one of the last few things I wanted to do for today's episode is to install a better item input bus on this large chemical reactor. If any of you are clever enough, you'll already know why I just did this. Put our chips back in here, but my inventory is a dead giveaway. We've got a lot of explosives to make. And our final thing left to do is craft up an 8x wire, which you can only do this way apparently. I think that's kind of silly. Coat it with some rubber, 1 EU loss per meter, which is okay. Because with our setup, it's only going to go 1 block. While it backs up, I have 2x silver cable, which should be fine because the only thing requesting amps is these hatches, 2 amps each. And then our transformers are in step down mode from EV to HV, accepting 4 amps on this side and outputting on the others. So in theory, I should be able to connect this cable and get no explosions once we turn these on. What we can do is check the hatch. Now that I made this portable scanner, we can see it does have full energy. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I also did install our final set of nichrome coils, so they both will run the same recipe. The only difference between when they were over here and when they're here now is they have HV energy hatches. So let's grab some of the stainless steel, split it in half, and see if we have an explosion. Oh, that's not a good sign. Oh, we have plenty of problems. No wonder it didn't work. Maybe I should take care of that. This tape is so handy and so easy to make. Okay, no problems now. I believe they're both enabled. I'm just silly and I haven't routed the oxygen pipe over here yet. So let me do that real quick. We just gotta reroute some of this spaghetti piping under these large chemical reactors, which I don't even think are gonna be here much longer regardless, but well, we got no explosions and it's running now, so I'd assume that did the job. And upgrading to HV hatches is so nice because stainless steel just takes a mere 15 seconds now. All I need to do is hook up the other side of the oxygen pipe to our other blast furnace and then route our item output into this chest. Well, it looks like we are cooking full power. Blast furnaces running off of nuclear fuel. We even take a look here at our battery buffer. We're going down slightly, but it's really not bad at all. I could probably keep these suckers running for, I don't know, maybe an hour or two at a time. But we'll monitor this and see how well it does. It's good to know that we have our display right here. We can see we're still getting power for another 24 hours until I need to go and put some more fuel in. So we're gonna let these suckers cook. I have the item conduits routed in, so they are just depositing anything I'm making at the moment, such as red steel. And seen here, I am fully prepared to have a crap load of ITNT for our project for next episode. And I think with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. If you came over here for the first time by recommendation of Threefold, thank you very much. We will be tight partners, good buddies for a while. I'm looking forward to this next episode I'm about to start working on. If you go back and watch a live stream, you'll have a little bit of a hint on what the intro is about to be. Kind of gave away some hints this episode as well. But yes, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time.